Welcome to the YouTube channel, Contact Center Knowledge Hub, your one-stop solution for expert guidance, best practices, and actionable knowledge in the world of contact centers. Explore, learn, and enhance contact center skills. Let's see judgmental most important questions of forecasting method, Delphi. Let's see first question. If two expert groups provide conflicting forecasts, which one would you trust more and why? Think for a moment. And here is the answer. If two expert groups provide conflicting forecasts, I would trust neither immediately. Instead of choosing based on authority or confidence, I focus on the quality of the rationale behind each forecast. I evaluate both groups on 5 dimensions. First, the depth of reasoning. Are their estimates logically constructed or just intuitive guesses? Second, the evidence presented, such as customer behavior signals, marketing activity, system readiness, or process changes. Third, the historical accuracy of the experts involved, who has been reliable in similar situations. Fourth, the assumptions underlying the numbers, are they realistic, testable, and aligned with current conditions? And fifth, bias indicators, such as optimism bias, defensive assumptions, or hierarchical pressure. This is where the Delphi method becomes critical. By sharing rationales anonymously and running multiple rounds, Delphi naturally reduces variance and exposes weak or unsupported logic. Over successive rounds, the forecast built on stronger, evidence-based assumptions emerges as more credible. Not because of who proposed it, but because the reasoning withstands scrutiny. The key principle is this. Forecast credibility comes from insight quality, not authority or confidence level. That is how I determine which forecast to trust. Next question. When would you decide not to run a Delphi exercise even if uncertainty is high? Think for a moment. Even when uncertainty is high, there are situations where I would choose not to run a Delphi exercise. Delphi is valuable, but it is not always the right tool. I would avoid Delphi when speed is more critical than consensus, and decisions must be made immediately. When the decision window is extremely short, such as a live outage happening right now. When the problem has clear historical analogs, and past data already provides reliable guidance. When the issue is operational rather than judgment-based. For example, short-term intraday staffing adjustments. Or when the expert pool is unavailable or heavily biased, which would compromise the quality of insights. In these cases, I would rely instead on rapid short-term forecasting, real-time performance data, and proven operational heuristics. The guiding judgment is simple. Delphi is powerful only when expert insight adds more value than speed constraints remove. Choosing not to use Delphi is also a sign of sound forecasting judgment. Next question. If Delphi rounds do not converge after multiple iterations, what should you do? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. If Delphi rounds do not converge after multiple iterations, that outcome itself is meaningful. Lack of convergence usually means the uncertainty is real, not that the process has failed. In that situation, I would not force consensus. Instead, I would take 5 deliberate actions. First, I would shift to scenario-based forecasting rather than a single-point estimate. Second, I would define best, likely, and worst-case volumes using the full range of expert inputs. Third, I would add staffing buffers aligned to the worst-case scenario to protect SLAs. Fourth, I would increase intraday adjustment checkpoints so plans can adapt quickly. And fifth, I would strengthen real-time monitoring to detect early signals and course-correct. The key principle is this: Delphi should never be forced into agreement. When experts cannot converge, the responsible response is to embrace uncertainty and plan for risk rather than suppress it. That approach protects both operations and credibility. Next question. If one expert consistently provides extreme estimates, how will you judge whether to include or discard them? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. 4. If one expert consistently provides extreme estimates, how will you judge whether to include or discard them? Answer. I would evaluate the logic behind their inputs, not the extremity of their value. Include them if rationale is evidence-based. They have relevant experience. Their perspective highlights hidden risks. Exclude or downweight if their inputs are emotionally driven. They cannot justify their assumptions. Their past accuracy is consistently poor. Judgment should be guided by reasoning quality, not numerical alignment. Next question. How do you decide the number of Delphi rounds required? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. I don't decide the number of Delphi rounds based on a fixed count. I decide based on convergence quality. Specifically, I look at variance stability and rationale alignment, not how many rounds have already been completed. I stop the Delphi process when 4 conditions are met. First, forecast variance drops below an acceptable threshold, typically in the 10 to 15% range, depending on business risk. Second, expert rationales become consistent, meaning different experts are explaining their estimates using the same underlying drivers. Third, additional rounds stop producing new insights, experts are refining numbers, not uncovering new information. And fourth, convergence stabilize, with only marginal changes between rounds. At that point, continuing Delphi adds effort without incremental value. The key judgment is this: Delphi should run until clarity is achieved, not until a predefined number of rounds is completed. Stopping at the right moment ensures efficiency without sacrificing accuracy, which is exactly the purpose of the method. Next question. When experts disagree about AHT drivers, how do you judge which assumptions are stronger? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When experts disagree about average handle time drivers, I don't choose based on confidence or seniority. I evaluate the strength of the assumptions behind each viewpoint. I assess assumptions across 6 dimensions. First, historical analog behavior. Have similar changes produced measurable AHT shifts before? Second, process changes. Are there new steps, approvals, or documentation that directly add handle time? Third, customer journey complexity. Does the change increase explanations, clarifications, or troubleshooting? Fourth, training readiness. Are agents fully prepared, or is there a learning curve that will slow handling? Fifth, expected error patterns. Are mistakes or rework likely, driving longer calls or repeat handling? And sixth, past AHT sensitivity. How strongly has AHT reacted to comparable events in the past? The strongest assumption has 3 characteristics. It is anchored in observable operational reality. It can be validated quickly using early indicators, and it aligns logically with customer behavior, not speculation. The core judgment principle is this: valid HT risks are evidence-based and testable. Speculative concerns sound plausible, but they lack operational proof. My role is to separate signal from noise. So AHT forecasts are driven by reality, not opinion. Next question. How would you judge whether to prioritize expert intuition or data-centric trends in Delphi forecasting? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding whether to prioritize expert intuition or data-centric trends in Delphi forecasting, I always start with the nature of the event, not personal preference. There are three clear scenarios. First, when we are dealing with a new process, new policy, new product, or new customer behavior, I prioritize expert intuition. In these cases, historical data is weak or misleading, and frontline expertise provides better insight into what is likely to happen. Second, when the process is stable and the situation closely resembles past patterns, I prioritize data-driven trends. Here, historical volume, AHT, and seasonality provide reliable signals. Third, in mixed scenarios, where some elements are new and others are familiar, I deliberately blend both. I use statistical forecasts as the baseline and apply Delphi-driven uplift or correction factors to account for judgment-based risks. The key judgment skill is knowing when data stops being predictive. The core principle is this: data explains the past. Delphi explains the future, especially when the future won't resemble the past. That is when expert intuition must take the lead. Next question. If leadership challenges Delphi results as too conservative, how do you defend it using judgment? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When leadership challenges Delphi results as too conservative, I don't defend the numbers, I defend the judgment behind them. First, I point to the transparent rationale collected from multiple independent experts. This shows the forecast is not driven by fear or padding, but by documented operational logic. Second, I highlight the variance reduction across Delphi rounds. A conservative label usually fades when leaders see that disagreement narrowed and assumptions aligned through structured validation. Third, I walk through the specific risk drivers Delphi uncovered: policy confusion, process complexity, system dependencies, or customer behavior shifts. These are tangible risks, not hypothetical ones. Fourth, I use sensitivity analysis to show how small underestimates can quickly expose SLA vulnerability, penalties, or customer impact. Then, instead of arguing, I offer a balanced execution plan. I propose a likely case staffing plan, a control buffer to protect SLAs, and a contingency layer that activates only if clear triggers are met. Those triggers are predefined and measurable, so leadership maintains cost control while reducing operational risk. The judgment principle is simple. Good forecasting is not about optimism or conservatism. It's about balancing cost pressure with service protection. Delphi provides that balance. Next question. How do you decide who should be included in the Delphi expert panel? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding who to include in a Delphi expert panel, I focus on judgment quality, not job titles. I deliberately select experts who bring 5 key strengths. First, diverse functional perspectives, such as operations, WFM, quality, training, digital, or client, so no single lens dominates. Second, direct experience with the specific process or event being forecasted. Third, the ability to clearly articulate rationale, not just provide numbers. Fourth, a track record of accuracy in past forecasts or operational judgments. And fifth, low bias and independence, meaning they can separate facts from personal or political interests. Equally important is who I do not include. I avoid dominant personalities who influence others, individuals with strong political stakes in the outcome, and people who rely purely on instinct without evidence or operational logic. The judgment principle is this: a strong Delphi panel must be balanced, diverse, and objective. The quality of the forecast will never exceed the quality of the experts behind it. Choosing the right panel is the single most critical success factor in Delphi forecasting. Next question. When the client strongly disagrees with Delphi forecasts, how do you judge the right diplomatic approach? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When a client strongly disagrees with Delphi forecasts, the key is not to argue the number, but to manage the judgment and relationship behind the decision. My first step is always to understand exactly which assumptions the client disagrees with. Is it the expected uplift? The HT impact? The customer behavior logic? Or the risk level? Once that is clear, I take a structured, diplomatic approach. First, I show the Delphi rationale transparently, so the client sees why experts reached that conclusion, not just what the number is. Second, I highlight the risks of ignoring expert consensus, specifically the operational and SLA exposure, not in a threatening way, but as shared risk awareness. Third, I offer scenario-based alternatives instead of forcing one forecast. This reframes the conversation from disagreement to choice. Fourth, I clearly present the cost versus SLA impact of each scenario, so decisions are grounded in trade-offs, not opinions. Fifth, I invite joint Delphi participation, bringing client SMEs into the process to co-own assumptions and outcomes. And finally, when needed, I propose a pilot or monitoring window, such as a 1-week validation period with predefined triggers for adjustment. The judgment principle is this: strong forecasting leadership combines assertive evidence with diplomatic communication. You protect service outcomes while preserving trust and partnership. That balance is what makes Delphi effective in client-facing environments. Next question. How do you judge whether expert opinions are being influenced by group dynamics despite anonymity? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When judging whether expert opinions are being influenced by group dynamics, even with anonymity in place, I look for specific warning signs. The first red flag is sudden convergence without strong rationale. Numbers align, but explanations remain thin or circular. Second, I watch for anchoring to the facilitator's summary, where experts begin echoing phrasing or conclusions rather than contributing independent logic. Third, variance narrowing too quickly can indicate conformity rather than true insight. Fourth, I notice when experts reference each other indirectly, using phrases like "others have pointed out" instead of defending their own assumptions. And fifth, premature agreement on flawed or weak assumptions is a clear integrity risk. If any of these signs appear, I intervene deliberately. I reinforce anonymity to remove subtle social pressure. I provide sharper, neutral rational summaries that separate facts from interpretation. I introduce probing questions designed to challenge assumptions. And if needed, I add a dedicated Delphi round focused only on explaining assumptions, with no numerical estimates allowed. The judgment principle is this: Delphi only works when independence is protected. Vigilant facilitation preserves integrity. And integrity is what makes Delphi reliable. Next question. When is it appropriate to override Delphi consensus? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. Overriding a Delphi consensus is rare, and it must be done with discipline. It is appropriate to override Delphi only under specific conditions. First, when new information emerges after the Delphi rounds. Information that experts did not have when forming their estimates. Second, when there is a clear external trigger, such as a regulatory announcement, an unplanned outage, or a leaked marketing campaign. Third, when real-time data shows a sudden deviation that directly contradicts the assumptions used in the Delphi consensus. Fourth, when post-review reveals that the consensus missed or underestimated a critical indicator. Outside of these conditions, Delphi should stand. It is never appropriate to override Delphi based on leadership pressure, personal preference, or political motives. Any override must be objective, evidence-driven, and fully justifiable with documented reasoning. The judgment principle is simple. Delphi consensus is not flexible to authority, but it is responsive to new facts. That balance protects both decision quality and credibility. Next question. How do you judge when a Delphi forecast is good enough to finalize, even if variance is still present? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. I judge a Delphi forecast to be good enough to finalize. Not when variance disappears, but when decision confidence exceeds uncertainty. There are 6 signals I look for. First, variance no longer reduces meaningfully across rounds. Numbers may still differ, but the spread has stabilized. Second, rational alignment has settled. Experts may disagree on magnitude, but they agree on why demand will change. Third, all major drivers have been identified and debated. There are no unexplored assumptions left. Fourth, scenario ranges are consistent. Best, likely, and worst cases make logical sense relative to each other. Fifth, additional rounds yield diminishing returns. We are refining decimals, not discovering new insight. And sixth, time sensitivity requires a decision. Waiting longer adds risk, not clarity. The judgment principle is this. Delphi is finalized not at zero variance, but at the point where insight value outweighs marginal uncertainty. That is when a forecast becomes decision-ready. Next question. What judgment do you use to decide whether an extreme worst-case scenario should affect staffing? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding whether an extreme worst-case scenario should directly affect staffing, I apply risk-calibrated judgment, not fear-based reaction. I evaluate extreme scenarios across 5 dimensions. First, the probability of occurrence. How likely is this scenario based on current signals, not speculation? Second, the severity of impact. What would the effect be on SLA, customer experience, cost, and reputation if it occurs. Third, historical analogs or early risk indicators. Have we seen similar situations before, or are there warning signs already emerging? Fourth, the business tolerance for failure. Is this a low impact inconvenience or a high visibility, penalty driven risk? And fifth, operational resilience. How quickly can we respond with overtime, flex staffing, skill redeployment, or intraday controls? Based on this assessment, I make a clear distinction. If the scenario is high severity but low probability, I do not bake it into baseline staffing. Instead, I create a contingency-only plan with pre-approved actions, clear activation triggers, and rapid response mechanisms. If the scenario is high severity and medium probability, then I proactively include buffer staffing in the plan to protect SLAs and customer experience. The judgment principle is simple. Extreme scenarios should be risk managed, not feared. Staffing decisions must be probability aware and impact sensitive, ensuring resilience without unnecessary cost. Next question. How do you judge whether an expert's forecast is biased due to their departmental priorities? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When judging whether an expert's forecast is biased by departmental priorities, I focus less on what they predict and more on why they predict it. I look for 5 clear bias markers. First, forecasts that conveniently benefit their own department. For example, operations consistently pushing for higher staffing, or digital teams overstating deflection. Second, a lack of supporting evidence in assumptions. Claims that sound confident but aren't grounded in data, process changes, or customer behavior. Third, emotional or protective reasoning, such as fear-driven estimates or defensiveness about past decisions. Fourth, a historical pattern of over or under forecasting by that expert in similar situations. And fifth, a defensive reaction to cross-functional insights, where valid input from other teams is dismissed rather than evaluated. When I detect these signals, I don't discard the expert's input outright. Instead, I downweight the estimate, probe deeper with targeted questions, and test the assumptions against evidence from other experts. The judgment principle is this. Delphi succeeds when reasoning is balanced and evidence-backed, not when forecasts reflect departmental agendas. My role is to protect the integrity of the forecast by separating genuine operational insight from functional bias. Next question. When experts disagree on customer behavior assumptions, how do you decide which behavioral indicator is strongest? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When experts disagree on customer behavior assumptions, my role is to determine which behavioral indicator has the strongest signal, not the loudest opinion. I evaluate competing indicators across 6 dimensions. First, past customer tendencies. Have customers historically reacted this way in similar situations? Second, digital adoption trends. Are customers demonstrably shifting channels or behaviors over time? Third, sentiment and social media signals. Do early conversations, complaints, or engagement trends point in a clear direction? Fourth, process complexity. Does the change increase cognitive load, steps, or confusion for the customer? Fifth, communication clarity. Are messages simple and well-timed, or likely to create misunderstanding? And sixth, historical sensitivity to similar changes. How strongly has customer behavior responded to comparable events in the past? After this evaluation, I prioritize the indicator that shows the most consistent evidence across sources, or the highest quality signal, even if the volume of data is smaller. The judgment principle is this: behavioral facts are observable and repeatable. Opinions are speculative and inconsistent. In Delphi forecasting, my job is to separate those two. So customer behavior assumptions are evidence-driven, not belief-driven. Next question. When should you escalate Delphi disagreements to leadership, and when should you keep resolving within the panel? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding whether to escalate Delphi disagreements to leadership or continue resolving them within the expert panel, I rely on judgment about the nature of the disagreement, not the noise around it. I escalate Delphi disagreements to leadership only when escalation adds value. Specifically, I escalate when the conflict is political rather than analytical. Differences stem from organizational priorities or risk appetite. Decision timelines are tight and require executive authority. Or the risk exposure exceeds operational ownership, for example, major SLA penalties, regulatory impact, or reputational risk. In these cases, leadership input is necessary because the decision is strategic, not technical. However, I keep disagreements within the Delphi panel when the differences are purely analytical. Rationales can still be aligned through additional Delphi rounds. Assumptions can be tested or clarified, and the impact remains operational rather than strategic. The core judgment principle is this: not every disagreement needs escalation, and not every disagreement should be contained. Strong forecasting leadership means knowing when to protect the panel's analytical integrity and when to elevate a consensus blocker to leadership for resolution. That balance keeps Delphi both effective and credible. Next question. How would you judge whether a new expert should be added midway in the Delphi process? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding whether to add a new expert midway through a Delphi process, I weigh insight value against disruption risk. I add a new expert only when it clearly improves forecast quality. Specifically, I add an expert if new insights are genuinely required, for example, a product SME joins late or a new dependency emerges. Critical knowledge is missing, and existing experts cannot reasonably address it. Emerging data or events change the scenario context, altering assumptions made in earlier rounds. Or expertise gaps become visible after round 1, revealing blind spots. However, I deliberately do not add experts midstream if it would disrupt convergence or reset progress. It introduces bias or hierarchy pressure, or the expert lacks sufficient context, making their input superficial or misleading. If a new expert is added, I ensure they are fully briefed, their inputs remain anonymous, and their impact is evaluated carefully. The judgment principle is this: Delphi panels must remain competent, stable, and balanced. Adding experts should strengthen insight, not dilute or destabilize consensus. Next question. What judgment do you use to decide between presenting a single Delphi forecast versus multiple scenarios? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. When deciding whether to present a single Delphi forecast or multiple scenarios, I apply judgment based on uncertainty and decision risk, not preference. I present multiple scenarios when uncertainty is high, volume drivers are volatile, marketing, policy, or technology influences are unpredictable, expert rationales still differ meaningfully, and leadership needs clear visibility into risk and downside exposure. In these situations, scenarios, best, likely, and worst, enable informed, risk-aware decisions. Without forcing artificial precision, I present a single Delphi forecast when variance has reduced significantly. Drivers are stable and well understood. Delphi convergence is strong and consistent. And the decision requires operational precision, such as finalized staffing or budget locking. The judgment principle is this: clarity should never come at the cost of hiding uncertainty. And uncertainty should never paralyze decision-making. Strong Delphi judgment balances decision clarity with uncertainty management, ensuring leaders get exactly the level of precision the situation deserves. Next question. How do you judge when to challenge the Delphi consensus itself? Think for a moment. And the answer is here. I don't treat Delphi consensus as untouchable. Consensus is powerful, but it is not sacred. I deliberately challenge the Delphi consensus when specific warning signals appear. First, when a key assumption was overlooked. Something material that experts did not explicitly debate. Second, when new data emerges after the Delphi rounds that clearly contradicts the assumptions used to form the consensus. Third, when experts may have misinterpreted process details or customer behavior, leading to aligned, but flawed, logic. Fourth, when consensus forms too quickly, which often indicates anchoring or groupthink, not true convergence. And fifth, when external triggers change the context, such as a late policy update, campaign leak, system issue, or regulatory announcement. In these situations, my response is not to reject Delphi, but to reopen judgment deliberately. I either run a targeted follow-up round, introduce new evidence for reassessment, or shift to scenario-based planning if uncertainty has increased. The judgment principle is this: consensus is valuable only when it is well-reasoned and context-valid. Strong judgment means knowing when consensus reflects shared truth and when it reflects collective bias. That distinction protects both forecast accuracy and decision integrity. Thanks for watching my YouTube channel, Contact Center Knowledge Hub. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights. See you in the next video.